Hello, welcome to My Life in Spain. My name is Mark, and today I want to talk a little bit about the differences between the work culture in the United States and how people look at work here in Spain. Now, when I first moved to Spain back in 2010, I just come away from working a job in Atlantic City that was pretty stressful, I guess. And it struck me as being normal because that was my normal life. I worked 40 hours a week. Sometimes, I never worked more. I don't think I wasn't allowed to. I never worked more than that. But here in Spain, people just seem to have more time, and not only do they have more time off, they interact with other people differently. Each city has town workers, right? That keep the streets clean, collect the garbage, do all that kind of stuff. And here in Spain, and certainly in my city, in most cities I've seen, you often see a man or a woman walking around pushing a trolley, a cart with two garbage cans on it, and they have a shovel and a brush, and they're sweeping the streets. And yet people treat them just like they would anybody else. There's no class system here in Spain is what I'm trying to say. You know, the neighbors interact. Many of them, they grew up together, went to school together, so they know each other. And just because you got a job cleaning the streets, it's actually a good job. You get good pay, and it's a steady job. So it deserves some respect, you know. Also, people take pride in how their city looks. So that was one of the first things that got me. Then, of course, there was the siesta, which people will say, oh, it doesn't exist anymore. It does if you're outside the big cities. It still exists here in where I live, even in Alcoy. The siesta exists. But the big thing is the social taboos of talking about money or your job. When you're out somewhere having a drink in the bar, you can be next to a guy and start a conversation, and you'll be talking for an hour or two, and then you'll leave, and you still won't know what the guy does for a living because he's not going to tell you. Yet in the United States, you meet somebody, what are they going to say? Oh, what do you do for a living? Or what do you do, they'll say. And then the next thing will be, what kind of car you got? Because what they're trying to do is, in their mind, figure out how much money you've got. Whereas here in Spain, nobody ever talks about money. It's looked upon as being vulgar. So if you come to Spain, please don't start telling people how much money you got or what you do for a living, because they're not interested. You'll just embarrass yourself. All right, the next thing, work-life balance. Here, I think they've got it right. It's a misconception that Spaniards are lazy. They're not lazy, they work really hard. But in America, people work harder. And they don't work harder because they want to, they work harder because they need to. Everybody seems to be competing with each other for a promotion or something better, and a step up the ladder, if you like. Whereas here, it's more about people work to spend time with their friends and family and to enjoy the money they make from their job. This is something I've never seen in Spain, which I've seen in America, that I can't get over. Personalized license plates. Who in the world would buy a personalized license plate? It doesn't make any sense to me. It's just, why? You just want to show off? What's the reason? If you know, can you tell me, please? Vanity? I don't know. Anyway, here in Spain, I've never seen one. So maybe that's something that doesn't exist here. Now I'll give you a good story now about vacation time. In 1994, I was working on the Greek-Macedonia border. I was in a town called Gilia, in what was then known as Fyrom, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. And the Greeks and the Macedonians had a disagreement. The Greeks didn't like Macedonia's flag, and they didn't like the fact that Macedonia was calling themselves Macedonia. As far as the Greeks were concerned, Macedonia was Greece. It had been for 5,000 years, and it always would be Greece. So they had a spat, and the Greeks closed the border with Macedonia. So now the casino I worked in, we only had Greek customers. Locals were not allowed in the casino. All the employees were locals, a few foreigners like me, and all the customers were Greeks. So now we had no customers. So they ended up closing the casino down for a while. and I left. But luckily, before we went to Macedonia to work, after we got married, my wife and I in Slovakia, we went to Prague to do her green card. So she had the green card all ready to go. So when we found out that the job's finished, I said, well, we might as well go back to Atlantic City. And she said, okay, yeah, we'll do that. I said, we'll make good money, you know. It won't be easy in the beginning, but we'll be fine afterwards. So we're back there. We're working in Atlantic City. I was working at the Hilton, and she had a job at Bally's. And then she says to me one day, she says, when can I take my vacation time? I want to go see my parents back in Slovakia. And I said, you haven't got any vacation time. She said, what do you mean? I said, you have to work a year before you get 1 week. And she said she felt like she was going to cry. It's just like unheard of here in Europe. That's such a horrible system, you know? In fact, I looked it up. The average vacation Americans get, this is not the top end, not the bottom end, it's 2 weeks. That's the average. Now here in Spain, Spaniards are entitled to 30 days a year vacation, of which 2 weeks must be taken together at one time. Companies in Spain are not allowed to pay you for your vacation days. You actually have to take them. So on top of those 30 days vacation, you get an extra 14 for public holidays. So you get 44 paid days off a year. So in America, you get 1 week after 1 year, 2 weeks after 3 years, and then I think after 5 years you get 3 weeks. It's just bad. It's just so bad. So Spain definitely wins on that count. The next thing is, let's say, maternity leave. In America, they've got the FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, and I think you get 12 weeks, but your employer doesn't have to pay you for those 12 weeks. So I know what many people did that I work with. They would come back early because they didn't want to be out of work, not get paid for 12 weeks. Here in Spain, the mother gets 19 weeks and the father gets 19 weeks. So they can take them separately. So usually the woman takes the first 19 weeks and then she goes back to work, and then the husband takes his 19 weeks. Then you've got the daycare issues. I see this all the time in America, people complaining about daycare costs, how high they are. Here in Spain, if you have an infant, like between just born and 3 years old, you can put the baby in public daycare, which costs between 100 and 300 euros a month, depending on your income. So the lower your income, the lower you're going to have to pay. You also have private options. They run between like 400 and 900. Then at the age of 3 here in Spain, children start school. So you've not got these huge daycare costs like you do back in the United States. And then, of course, when you finish school, you can go to college, and you're not going to leave college with a massive amount of debt, unlike the United States. Now, I don't want to knock America here. It's sounding like that, I know, but the truth is, I think America could do better. The richest country in the world could do better. You know, here in Spain, people have universal health care. Hello. No need for medical insurance. You got universal health care. Everybody's got health care. In America, you're afraid you're going to lose your job. What am I going to do if I lose my job? How am I going to afford health care? It's crazy. It really is a different way of looking at life. Here, people enjoy their life. They enjoy their time off. They enjoy spending their money. They enjoy travel. But, you know, in America, it's so hard. You're constantly battling to stay above water. You know, you need it. You have to have a car. That's an expense. Here, you don't need a car necessarily, depending on where you live. So you've got all these expenses in America. Then you've got all these worries that if you lose your job, what are you going to do? You know, or if you get sick and you don't have health care and you can go bankrupt. That's never going to happen here. So people are more relaxed, you know. It's a much better system, and I wish they would do that in the United States. It would help a lot of people there. And I don't know why you don't go to your politicians and tell them, can we do this? I know they're going to say, oh, it's communism, it's socialism. It's not. It's a right everybody should have. Everybody should have a right to free healthcare and free education. And it should be funded by the taxes, not buying weapons to go drop on Iran. Anyway, that's just my little rant there. Just think about these things, will you? And tell me what you think in the comments. Do you think they could do things better in the United States? Because I certainly do. It's a great country, and it could be so much better than it is. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll catch you in my next video. Bye for now.